She stood there, humiliated, as the elite whispered and laughed, denied a table, dismissed as if she were nothing. But when her billionaire husband found out, he didn't just show up, he made the entire restaurant regret their mistake in a way no one saw coming. Charlotte stepped into the restaurant, her heart steady but expectant. The low hum of conversation, the clinking of fine crystal, and the aroma of expertly prepared dishes filled the air. Seared filet mignon, buttery lobster, a whisper of truffle in the distance. This was a place of quiet opulence, where every detail spoke of exclusivity. She approached the hostess stand with the ease of someone who belonged, yet something in the air shifted. The woman behind the podium barely spared her a glance before tilting her head slightly, her polite smile just shy of genuine. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't seat you." Charlotte's brow furrowed. "That must be a mistake. I have a reservation under Carter." The hostess flicked her gaze to the screen, then back up, her expression unreadable. "We have a very particular clientele policy." A hush seemed to ripple through the room. Though no one spoke directly to her, Charlotte felt the weight of lingering stares. A woman at a nearby table slowly stirred her wine, eyes narrowing just enough to make her intent clear. Across the room, a couple exchanged knowing glances, their smirks faint but present. A waiter passed by, barely lowering his voice. "She really thinks she's having dinner here?" Charlotte's pulse quickened, not from embarrassment, but from the unsettling realization of exactly what was happening. The judgment in the air was thick, suffocating, but she held her ground. What none of them knew was that this night, this moment, would be etched into their memories forever. Charlotte's fingers tightened around the strap of her purse as she met the hostess's gaze, refusing to waver. "I'm sorry," she repeated, her voice steady but firm. "There must be a mistake. My husband made the reservation. Carter, please check again." The hostess, a blonde woman with sharp, sculpted features and an expression of thinly veiled disdain, let out an exaggerated sigh. She didn't even glance at the screen, her manicured nails drumming idly against the podium. "Like I said," she repeated, her lips curling, "we can't seat you." There was something almost smug in her tone, as if Charlotte should have known better than to even ask. Charlotte's gaze swept the restaurant. The place was dazzling, low golden lighting, crystal chandeliers casting a soft glow over white linen-draped tables. The city's elite filled every corner, their laughter mixing with the sound of clinking champagne flutes and the occasional scrape of silver against fine china. Women in designer gowns lounged with effortless grace, their wrists adorned with sparkling diamonds. Men in sleek tailored suits leaned back in plush chairs, talking business between bites of seared wagyu and truffle risotto. And then there was Charlotte, standing at the entrance, being scrutinized like an intruder who had wandered in by mistake. Whispers drifted through the air, hushed but intentional. "That's the second time she's asked," a woman murmured behind a crystal flute of champagne. So desperate. Charlotte straightened her shoulders, keeping her face impassive. "I don't understand. My husband and I have dined here before. We had no issue then." The hostess finally deigned to tap a few keys, her movements deliberately slow, a forced sigh escaping her lips. A second later, she looked up, her expression faux apologetic. "Oh," she said, voice syrupy sweet. "It seems we're fully booked." She barely hid her smirk as she added, "Perhaps you should try somewhere, more suited to your taste." Charlotte caught the insult immediately. More suited to your taste. A soft chuckle came from the bar. Two women in glittering gowns sat side by side, their perfectly styled hair unmoving as they leaned toward each other. "Some people really don't know when they don't belong," one of them whispered, loud enough for Charlotte to hear. Heat prickled beneath her skin, not from embarrassment, but from the sheer arrogance radiating from every direction. Her patience was wearing thin. "I'd like to speak to the manager." The hostess barely concealed an eye roll before turning slightly. "Oh, Mr. Calloway is quite busy tonight," she said airily. But I assure you, his answer would be the same. Before Charlotte could respond, a tall man in an immaculate black suit appeared. Mr. Calloway, general manager. His eyes flicked over her, brief and uninterested, before he turned to the hostess. "Is there a problem?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew what was happening. Charlotte met his gaze, unflinching. "I have a reservation. My husband made it under Carter. Your hostess is refusing to seat me." The manager's expression didn't change. He exchanged a glance with the hostess, silent understanding passing between them before he turned back to Charlotte. "I'm afraid we're at capacity," he said smoothly. "Perhaps next time you should call ahead to confirm availability." Charlotte's jaw tightened. "We did." A pause. The air between them grew thick with something unspoken. And then, the final blow. Mr. Calloway exhaled sharply, lowering his voice just enough to sound casual, yet ensuring it cut deep. "Look, ma'am, this is a private establishment. We have the right to reserve our tables for clientele who fit the atmosphere." The meaning behind his words was as sharp as glass. Charlotte felt the shift around her, the growing amusement, the silent judgment. A man at a nearby table smirked as he swirled his wine. "She's still trying?" he mused to his dining partner, who responded with a soft laugh. The woman at the bar lifted her flute in mock salute. "Cheers to knowing your place." The weight of it pressed against Charlotte's ribs. This wasn't just about a reservation. This was about putting her in her place. Then, just as she was about to respond, the air in the restaurant changed. The murmurs died. The laughter stilled. The weight of the stairs shifted from her to the entrance. A voice, deep and calm, cut through the room like a knife. "Is there a problem here?" Charlotte turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was her husband. A sudden hush fell over the restaurant. The once booming laughter and quiet whispers vanished as the doors swung open. The atmosphere shifted instantly, as if the very air had thickened with tension. And there he was, Carter Westwood, billionaire, visionary, a man whose presence alone commanded attention. Dressed in an impeccably tailored black suit, he moved with quiet authority. His piercing blue eyes scanned the room, sharp and assessing. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to demand anything. The sheer weight of his presence did all the work. People lowered their forks. Waiters froze mid-step. Even the hostess, who had moments ago looked so smug, suddenly seemed to shrink under the intensity of his gaze. Charlotte didn't have to say a word. He had already taken in everything: the humiliation, the judgment, the cruelty. His jaw clenched, a flicker of something dark passing through his eyes. Then, in a voice that was calm, yet carried the weight of thunder, he spoke. "Is there a reason my wife has not been seated?" The manager, suddenly pale, opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. The hostess swallowed hard, her confidence crumbling. Mr. Westwood, we..." Carter took a step forward, and she instinctively stepped back. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Then, without breaking eye contact, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. One click. "I'd like to have a word with the owner," he said flatly. The staff's faces drained of color. They all knew. This was no ordinary man. This was someone who could end them. And suddenly, they realized they had made a grave mistake. The silence was deafening. The weight of Carter Westwood's presence had already shaken the room, but what came next would shatter everything the antagonists thought they knew. The manager, still frozen, struggled to find words. The hostess, now visibly trembling, clutched the reservation book as if it could shield her from the storm that was about to hit. Carter's eyes locked onto them, cold and unwavering. Then slowly, he placed his phone on the table, pressing a button. A voice echoed through the restaurant's sound system, deep, authoritative, and familiar. "Carter!" What a surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure? It was the restaurant's owner. The hostess turned pale. The manager stiffened. A few guests gasped. This was no ordinary call. Carter leaned slightly forward, his voice calm yet cutting. "I'm at your establishment," he said, "where, despite my wife's reservation, she was denied service. Humiliated, in fact." A horrified silence. The owner stammered on the other end. "What? That's impossible. Who?" Carter didn't let him finish. "I assume you'd like to know the names of the employees responsible?" he asked smoothly. Every eye in the room darted to the hostess and the manager, their faces twisted with panic. No, Mr. Westwood, We can fix this," the manager stammered. "This is all a misunderstanding." Carter's lip curled slightly. "A misunderstanding?" He gestured toward Charlotte, who still stood near the entrance, her eyes filled with emotions, humiliation, disbelief, and now the first spark of justice. His voice dropped to a razor-sharp whisper. "Tell me, what part of turning my wife away because of her appearance was a misunderstanding?" Murmurs spread through the restaurant. Guests who had ignored Charlotte moments ago now whispered amongst themselves, realization dawning. The hostess, desperate, turned to Charlotte. I didn't know who you were," she pleaded. "If I had—" Carter's eyes narrowed. That's exactly the problem. The weight of his words sent a chill through the room. He turned his gaze to the guests, then back to the staff. "You judge based on appearances," he continued. "You decide who is worthy of respect, who belongs, and who doesn't. But you made a fatal mistake." A smirk played on his lips. "My wife owns more real estate in this city than you could ever dream of." Gasps rippled through the room. The guests looked at Charlotte with new eyes. This simple woman, who had been mocked and turned away, was far more powerful than any of them had imagined. The hostess let out a strangled gasp. The manager turned an unnatural shade of white. Carter wasn't done. "I imagine your investors wouldn't appreciate hearing about this discrimination," he mused, tilting his head slightly. "Shall I make a few calls?" The hostess practically collapsed against the podium. The manager was already scrambling for words. Please, Mr. Westwood, there's no need for that," he begged. "We can correct this. Immediately. A private dining room, a complimentary meal, anything you wish." Carter exhaled sharply, a humorless chuckle escaping his lips. "How generous of you." Then, turning to Charlotte, he asked, "Darling, what do you think? Should we stay?" Charlotte held their desperate gazes for a long moment. She didn't need revenge. She had already won. With quiet grace, she smiled. "No, love. Let's go somewhere where people understand the value of respect." Carter nodded. "That's what I thought." Then, with effortless ease, he reached into his jacket, pulled out a black card, and slid it across the podium. "Consider this my final tip," he said flatly, "for your severance." The hostess blinked, confused, until she realized what he meant. He wasn't paying them. He was firing them. The moment hung heavy in the air. The manager stammered. The hostess let out a choked sob. And then, as if the universe itself had chosen a side, a slow clap started from the back of the restaurant. It was one of the guests, a man in a tailored suit, nodding in approval, then another, and another, until the entire room erupted in applause. Carter turned, offering his hand to Charlotte. With elegance and dignity, she took it, and together they walked out. The hostess now exposed, the manager ruined. Justice had been served. The restaurant still buzzed with the weight of what had just happened. The shocked whispers, the embarrassed faces. Everything had changed in an instant. Charlotte and Carter stepped outside, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget the lesson they had just learned. The cool night air felt refreshing against Charlotte's skin. She took a deep breath, finally allowing the tension to melt away. Carter squeezed her hand gently. "Are you okay?" His voice, once commanding and sharp, was now filled with warmth. She nodded, exhaling slowly. Better than ever. Their limousine was already waiting, the driver holding the door open. As Charlotte moved to step in, she hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the restaurant. "They'll remember this," she murmured. Carter followed her gaze. "Oh, they will. And next time, they'll think twice before treating someone that way." Inside the car, Charlotte leaned back against the soft leather seat. The city lights reflected in the tinted windows, casting a glow over her thoughtful expression. "I never wanted special treatment just because I'm your wife," she said quietly. "But sometimes, people need a reminder that kindness and respect shouldn't be reserved for the wealthy." Carter smirked, pulling out his phone. "Well, I'll make sure they remember this lesson for a long time." She raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" "Let's just say," he said, typing a quick message, "this restaurant will be making headlines tomorrow, and not the good kind." A small laugh escaped her lips. "You always have a plan, don't you?" He chuckled. "I don't tolerate injustice, and no one humiliates my wife without consequences." The limousine glided smoothly through the streets. Charlotte turned to look at Carter, her billionaire husband, powerful, respected, feared by some. But to her, he was simply the man who had always stood by her side. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "Thank you." His gaze softened as he lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss. Always. As the city shimmered around them, Charlotte realized something important. Carter's true power wasn't in his wealth, it was in his integrity. And that, more than anything, was what truly mattered. Before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world, and it helps bring more powerful stories like this to life. Now, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I love seeing how far our community reaches, and it's always amazing to connect with all of you. This story was more than just about money or power. It was about respect, something we all deserve, no matter our background. Too often people judge others based on appearances, forgetting that true worth comes from within. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something like this? How did it make you feel? Let's keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's remind the world that kindness, dignity, and respect should never be reserved for just the wealthy. And if this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who needs a reminder that true power isn't about money. It's about character. Thank you for being part of this incredible community. I'll see you in the next story.